In the Grand Council Hall of the Xanthian Galactic Empire, the highest-ranking officials gather to discuss an unprecedented event. An unknown human warship has appeared out of nowhere with no record in their archives. The Xanthian military is thrown into a state of panic as the ship performs a series of impossible maneuvers, defying all logic and expectation. As the ship grows closer, the Xanthian Empire's confidence begins to crack, and fear creeps in. The Xanthian Empire's council hall was a vast structure, aglow with the pulsating light of distant stars, their shadows stretching across a room, where galactic decisions were made with absolute certainty. The Xanthians had ruled the known universe for millennia, their empire unchallenged. Their technology was unrivaled. Their influence stretched across hundreds of star systems. The idea that something could surprise them was laughable, until now. The room was alive with frantic chatter as the council members exchanged nervous glances. The holographic display in the center of the room projected an image of a human warship. A ship that had appeared out of nowhere, with no record in any of their archives. No scans, no previous engagements, nothing. "How can this be?" Supreme Commander Zalrin's voice thundered, his 6 massive limbs gesturing in agitation. "This ship should not exist. Our scans show nothing. We have no records of human military, of vessels of this scale. How did it breach our outer defenses without any trace?" One of the junior officers, his face pale, was hunched over a console, his eyes darting between various data streams. "Sir, this ship... It's not just invisible to our records, it's moving faster than anything we've ever seen. It's outmaneuvering our sensors. Impossible speeds, impossible turns. It's as though we're not even tracking it. All of our advanced tracking systems are failing." Zalrin turned to face his subordinates, his eyes narrowing. "Are you telling me this human ship is beyond the reach of our technology?" The officer nodded shakily. "Yes, Commander. Its technology seems to bend space itself. We've never seen anything like it. No ship in the known galaxy can move like this. It's like it's rewriting the laws of physics as it goes." The other council members grew silent. For the first time in centuries, the Xanthian Empire found itself confronted with something beyond its understanding. A ship from a primitive world. A world they had written off as inconsequential was now toying with their most advanced systems. "Commander," a voice from the back of the room spoke. It was General Rythar, a seasoned war strategist. "We cannot ignore this. This is not just a failure in our records. This is a direct challenge. If humanity is capable of this kind of technology, we have no idea what they're truly capable of." Zalrin's cold, confident demeanor faltered for a moment. The humans, but their history, they've never advanced like this. Their weaponry is primitive. They are nothing compared to the might of the Xanthian Empire. The thought was absurd. The Xanthians had conquered entire star systems, annihilated species that dared oppose them. The humans were a speck in the grand scheme of things. They had no business having anything like this. Yet here it was, this mysterious warship, defying all logic, all expectations. Suddenly, the image of the human ship on the hologram flickered. It had moved again, faster than any ship in the galaxy, faster than anything the Xanthian scanners could keep up with. "Commander, it's coming closer!" shouted one of the officers. "It's approaching the core of our fleet. It's on a direct course toward us." Zalrin's eyes widened. "What is it doing? Why hasn't it attacked yet?" The ship continued its approach, coming closer with every passing moment. Its movements were too quick for the Xanthian ships to respond, too erratic to predict. The ship was closing in faster than any Xanthian warship could ever hope to. It wasn't just a threat, it was a message. Zalrin stood, his fists clenched. "We can't let it reach our fleet. Order the ships to prepare for engagement. Immediately." The Xanthian fleet, massive and imposing, began to shift into battle formations, weapons powering up, shields flickering to life. But the human ship remained oddly quiet. It had not fired a single shot. On board the human warship Vigilance, Commander Aiden Voss stood with his arms crossed, watching the holographic display of the Xanthean fleet moving into position. His ship was just outside their weapons range, cloaked, invisible. The Xantheans didn't know it yet, but they were about to learn just how far humanity had come. Voss's expression was calm, his voice steady. "Stand by for my command. The moment they open fire, we engage." His crew worked silently, their fingers moving over consoles, ensuring the final adjustments were made. The Vigilance was a marvel of human engineering, cloaking technology, advanced energy weapons, gravity manipulating systems, and a stealth protocol, the likes of which the Xantheans could never have anticipated. But none of it mattered unless they used it at the right moment. "Commander," Lieutenant Collins said, her voice laced with tension. "They're charging their weapons. They're preparing to engage." Voss's gaze sharpened, and he gave a subtle nod. "Now." In an instant, the Vigilance disengaged from its cloak, appearing like a phantom out of nowhere, its weapons primed. The Xanthean fleet was ready to strike, and they had no idea they were about to be blindsided. Earth's weapon systems lit up, discharging a blast that immediately tore through the shields of the nearest Xanthean warship. Back in the council chamber, the Xanthean officials stood frozen, watching as the Vigilance revealed its true form. The shockwave from its weapons slammed into the fleet, and suddenly the grandiose Xanthean warships were no longer so imposing. Their shields buckled, their communications scrambled. Xanthean ships that had once been symbols of dominance, were falling apart under the relentless assault. What is this?" Zalrin muttered, his voice a hollow echo in the chamber. "The humans," General Rithar whispered, his voice full of disbelief. "They've hidden this from us. They've been biding their time. The Xantheans had always believed that their dominance in the galaxy was unchallenged. They had believed they were the apex. But in one single moment, humanity had shattered their delusions. The real reason. The Xantheans feared the human warship was not just their technology. It was the unexpected, the impossible. Humanity had hidden their capabilities. They had concealed their power and their resilience, and now, with a single ship, they were turning the galaxy on its head. Voss watched the chaos unfold, his expression still calm. But beneath it was a flicker of satisfaction. The Xantheans had been too sure of themselves, too arrogant to see the potential of Earth's people. "We're sending a message," Voss murmured, his eyes fixed on the flickering image of the Xanthean fleet being torn apart. "No one will ever doubt us again." But as the battle raged on, one final chilling message blinked across his screen from the Xanthean fleet. "We are not finished. This is only the beginning." The words echoed in the room, and Voss's expression darkened. The galaxy had just begun to realize the truth. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated, and this was just the first step. The Vigilance surged forward, its sleek form gliding through the stars like a predator with purpose. In the vast expanse of space, where light barely touched, the human warship stood as an enigma. The Xanthean fleet, once so sure of their dominance, was now in disarray, the first strike from the Vigilance having decimated the shields of their closest ships. Commander Aiden Voss watched the scene unfold from his command station, his face stoic and unreadable. "Status report," Voss commanded, his voice unwavering despite the tension in the air. Lieutenant Collins, standing by his side, kept her. "Focus on the data streams flowing across the large holographic display." "Xanthean fleet is in chaos, Commander. Their shields are compromised, and we've taken down the first wave of their warships. They're trying to regroup, but their formations are broken." Voss nodded, his eyes tracking the movements of the Xanthean ships. "We've only just begun. Maintain our course. They'll come at us harder now. Prepare for counterattacks. This is where they make their move. The Xanthaians, now reeling from the surprise of humanity's strike, would not take this lying down. Earth's ship had just struck first, showing them a strength they had long dismissed. But Voss knew it wouldn't be easy. The Xanthaians were too proud, too powerful to give up without a fight. Let's keep the pressure on, Voss continued, turning to his operations officer. We don't stop until they understand that the galaxy has changed. Far across the stars, aboard the Arrogant Majesty, Supreme Commander Zalrin stood silent in the darkened command center. The once mighty Xanthaian fleet was now a shadow of its former glory, with its ships scattered, disabled, and crippled. The human warship had caught them off guard, but it was more than that. They had never imagined such a threat from a species so far beneath them on the galactic scale, a species they had long regarded as insignificant. "Report!" Zalrin's voice cut through the stillness, each word sharp with frustration. One of the officers at the back of the room approached, shaking slightly as he relayed the situation. "Commander, we've managed to regroup the majority of our fleet near the Eridani sector, but their energy readings are fluctuating. We're still unable to get a consistent scan of the human warship. They're using some sort of adaptive technology. We can't lock onto them with our systems." Zalrin's sharp mandibles clicked together in disbelief. "You are telling me that we cannot even track a single human ship? After everything we've seen in the galaxy, after centuries of dominance, we cannot deal with a human vessel?" His voice rose in anger, but it was tinged with genuine panic. The Xanthaian Empire, masters of war for millennia, had been thrown off balance by a single ship. A species they had relegated to the fringes of the galaxy had shown them how fragile their reign was. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," Zalrin barked. "We need to work together. I want every remaining ship in our arsenal on the offensive. Prepare to take that ship down. Now!" Back on the Vigilance, Voss could feel the change in the air as the battle continued. The Xanthaians were reassembling their forces, but their tactics had shifted. The Xanthaians were no longer acting with the same arrogance. They were fighting defensively now, trying to keep their distance, trying to regain control. The Vigilance and its accompanying fleet had forced them into a corner. "Commander," Lieutenant Collins called out, her voice now edged with urgency, "Xanthaian reinforcements have arrived. They're charging their weapons. They've shifted and to a full offensive strategy. They're coming in hot." Voss stood silently for a moment, his face a mask of cold determination. "We'll take them head on. Activate the gravity well generators. Let's see how they handle it this time." "Gravity well generators activated," Collins confirmed, her fingers moving swiftly across the console. "Ready for deployment." "Commander," Voss's gaze shifted to the large holographic display in front of him, where the Xanthaian fleet was closing in. The battle was about to intensify, and now it was time to test the limits of the Vigilance's power. "Deploy," Voss said. The moment the words left his lips, the Vigilance's gravity well generators surged to life. The human warship systems hummed with energy, and the surrounding space began to warp. A massive gravitational force erupted from the Vigilance, pulling at the Xanthaian ships like a cosmic magnet. Their ships, powerful and advanced, were suddenly vulnerable to the altered gravity fields. Several ships in the Xanthaian fleet were torn from their positions, forced into uncontrollable orbits and chaos as their advanced systems struggled to compensate. "Perfect," Voss muttered, under his breath, watching as the Xanthaian fleet fell into disarray. "Now let's finish this." The human warships moved in, striking with precision. The Xanthaians, once confident in their technological superiority, now found themselves trapped in a space that was no longer their own. The Vigilance had already turned their greatest strength against them, and now Earth's fleet was unleashing hell on their helpless foes. Zalrin stood in his command room, his hands trembling as he watched the chaos unfold on the view screen. His fleet, the greatest fighting force the galaxy had ever known, was falling apart. The human warships had outmaneuvered them at every turn. His once proud fleet was now losing the battle. It was as if their greatest fear had come to life before. Their eyes. We cannot keep this up, Sikthar said, his voice shaky. We've underestimated them. Every ship they have is tearing through us. What kind of technology do they possess? Zalrin's eyes were wide with terror. They shouldn't have this power. This isn't possible. The human warships continued their barrage. They had turned the Xanthians' own technologies against them. Gravity, weapons, even the electromagnetic fields. Everything was being manipulated by Earth's fleet in ways no one could have anticipated. The Xanthians were learning the hard way that they were not the most powerful force in the galaxy. On the Vigilance, Voss's expression remained calm as he watched the Xanthian fleet crumble under the relentless assault. The Vigilance had done its job. The Xanthians were scattered, broken. Their ships were turning in retreat, but it was too late. Earth had already shown them the full extent of what humanity was capable of. "Commander," Collins said, breaking his concentration. "We've pushed them back. The Xanthians are retreating. We've won." Voss's eyes flicked to the viewports as the last Xanthian ships disappeared into the distance. The battle had been won, but Voss knew better than to rest on laurels. The Xanthians wouldn't take this defeat lightly. They'd return. But for now, humanity had sent a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. Earth was no longer a species to be ignored. "Stand by," Voss said. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy is about to realize who we are." And as the Vigilance drifted through the aftermath of the battle, the realization of humanity's newfound power settled in. The Velvorians had already been taught a lesson. Now it was the Xanthians' turn, and with each passing moment, humanity's place in the galaxy was being solidified. No one would ever forget the force they had just unleashed. The aftermath of the battle left the stars themselves shivering in the silence that followed. The once feared Xanthian fleet, which had held dominion over vast sectors of space, was now a crumpled shell of its former self. Earth's fleet, though fewer in number, had proven to be far more than the Xanthians had ever imagined. "Commander." Aiden Voss stood at the helm of the Vigilance, watching as the last remnants of the Xanthian forces retreated into the vast emptiness. The battle had been brutal, decisive, and in a strange way, beautiful. The Xanthians had come to enforce their will on Earth, and they had learned the price of that mistake. "Report," Voss ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of the victory. Lieutenant Collins, who had remained at her station through the entire engagement, turned to face him. "The Xanthian fleet is in full retreat, Commander. Their remaining ships are attempting to regroup near the Eridani sector, but they're scattered and uncoordinated. They've suffered catastrophic losses, especially in their core battle groups." Voss absorbed the information without flinching. It was exactly what he had hoped for, but there was no time for celebration. Not yet. The Xanthians had been humbled, but their pride would drive them to return. That was something Voss had learned about the galaxy's most powerful empires. They didn't take defeat lightly. "Prepare the fleet for pursuit," Voss said, his voice calm but full of purpose. "We can't let them recover. We finish this now." As Collins relayed the orders to the rest of the fleet, Voss turned toward the viewports, his eyes narrowing. The Vigilance had already struck fear into the heart of the Xanthian Empire, and now they were going to make sure the galaxy knew that humanity was not to be underestimated. They would press the advantage and make sure the Xanthians would never return to threaten Earth again. Far across the galaxy, aboard the Arrogant Majesty, the flagship of the Xanthian fleet, Supreme Commander Zalrin stood motionless, his six eyes fixed on the large holographic display. The vastness of space outside the ship's viewport mirrored the emptiness he felt inside. His fleet, once the proud rulers of the galaxy, had been shattered by a single human warship. The Vigilance and its accompanying ships had obliterated everything in their path, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. Zalrin clenched his fists, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "This cannot stand," he muttered to himself. "We will not allow this humiliation to be the end of us." Sicthar, his trusted strategist, approached, his posture tense. "Commander, we are at a crossroads. Our forces are scattered, and the human fleet is closing in. We've lost over half of our warships, and our resources are spread thin. What do we do?" Zalrin's eyes blazed with a cold fury. "We fight. We regroup. We make them understand that we are not finished. No one humiliates the Xanthaians and lives to tell the tale." Sicthar hesitated for a moment. "But, Commander, their technology, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered. We need more than just brute force. We need to understand what they've done to us." Zalrin turned sharply to face Sicthar, his voice seething with anger. "You're saying we should sit here and wait while they finish us off, while they take everything from us?" He paced the room, his 6 limbs moving with agitation. "We've faced worse. We've overcome worse. We will rebuild, and we will strike back. This will not be the legacy of the Xanthian Empire." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. He had led countless victories across the galaxy. His fleet was the pinnacle of Xanthian power. And yet, here he was, with his fleet in ruins, beaten by a species they had dismissed as primitive. He could feel his empire slipping through his fingers, and the weight of it crushed him. "We need answers," Zalrin muttered, his voice quieter now. "We need to know how they did this, how they turned the tide in their favor so effortlessly." Back on the Vigilance, Voss stood at the command station, his hands clasped behind his back as he observed the movement of the Xanthaian fleet. The pursuit was going smoothly. The Xanthians were retreating in disarray, but Voss knew they would attempt to regroup. They had their pride, and that pride, like all empires, would drive them to retaliate. "Commander, we've made contact with the Eridani sector," Collins reported. "The Xanthians are trying to consolidate their forces. We estimate their remaining fleet is attempting to regroup at a nearby station. They're planning a final stand." Voss's eyes hardened. "Good. We'll make sure their final stand is their last. Prepare the fleet for an all-out assault. I want no survivors." Collins looked up from her station, her voice filled with respect and resolve. "Understood, Commander." Voss glanced at her, his gaze sharp. "This is more than a battle. This is a message. We don't just defeat them. We show them that Earth will never be a species to bow to anyone. We are a force now, and we will remind the galaxy of that." The Xanthian fleet, broken and battered, was desperately trying to regroup near the Eridani station. They had established a defensive perimeter, hoping to use the station's heavy defenses to their advantage. But even as the station's weapon systems came online, it was clear that the Xanthians were on the defensive. They had no more tricks up their sleeves. All they had left was their pride and their desperation. Zalrin stood at the helm of the arrogant Majesty, his eyes scanning the holographic display. The human fleet was closing in, their ships sleek and deadly. The Vigilance was leading the charge, its form a shadow among the stars, a reminder of what had happened in the last battle. "We've failed," Zalrin whispered, his voice hollow with the weight of defeat. "We've failed the Empire." Sicthar's voice broke through the despair. "No, Commander. We still have one last chance. We have the station's defenses. We can make them pay for this." Zalrin turned to face his strategist, his gaze filled with resolve. "Prepare the fleet. We'll fight. We'll make sure they know the price of crossing the Xanthians." But even as he spoke, Zalrin couldn't shake the feeling that this would be their final battle. The human fleet was relentless, and their weapons were unlike anything the Xanthians had ever encountered. No matter how hard they fought, no matter how much they tried to salvage their empire, they were no match for Earth's fury. The final engagement was swift. The Vigilance and its accompanying fleet surged forward, their weapons charging with devastating force. The Xanthian fleet attempted to hold their ground, but their once formidable defense systems were no match for the human onslaught. EMP blasts tore through their shields, gravity well generators pulled their ships into disarray, and the Vigilance's powerful energy cannons tore through their hulls. The battle was over in minutes, and the Eridani station, once a symbol of Xanthian power, was now just another casualty in the wake of Earth's victory. On the Vigilance, Voss stood motionless, watching the destruction unfold. His crew was silent, but they all knew the gravity of the moment. The Xanthians had been crushed, but more than that, the message had been sent. Earth was no longer a species to be ignored. As the final remnants of the Xanthian fleet disintegrated, in the darkness, Voss turned to his crew, prepared to depart. He said quietly, his voice steady, "The galaxy will never forget what happened here today." And with that, the Vigilance and its fleet disappeared into the stars, leaving nothing behind but the wreckage of an empire that had thought itself invincible. The Xanthian Empire had been brought to its knees. Earth had proven that even the mightiest civilizations could fall, especially when they underestimated humanity's resolve. And for the first time, the galaxy understood that Earth was no longer a forgotten world. It had arrived, and no one would ever forget it. The final remnants of the Xanthian fleet drifted in the cold expanse of space, shattered and broken. Their once proud ships, now nothing more than burning husks, floated aimlessly through the void. The battle had been swift, brutal, and decisive. Earth's fleet, led by the Vigilance, had delivered the final blow, sending the Xanthian Empire into a tailspin from which it could never recover. Aboard the Vigilance, Commander Aiden Voss stood motionless, his eyes scanning the battlefield. The human fleet had won, but the weight of the victory was not lost on him. The Xanthian Empire had fallen, but in its place a new power had risen, Earth. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. "Report," Voss said, his voice steady. Lieutenant Collins turned to him, her face a mix of exhaustion and quiet pride. "The last of the Xanthian ships are retreating, Commander. We've crippled their fleet. The Eridani station is now under our control, and we've secured the area." Voss nodded, his face unreadable. "Good. Make sure the fleet stays on high alert. The Xanthians will regroup. But for now, let them scatter. They've learned their lesson." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed the reality of what had just occurred. Earth had defeated one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The victory was not just military, it was symbolic. Humanity had proven its place among the stars, and there was no turning back now. Voss turned his gaze toward the stars, his thoughts distant. "This is only the beginning. We've made a mark today, but the galaxy won't rest easy. We've shown them our strength, but now we need to solidify our future." He paused, his eyes narrowing as he thought of the battles to come. "We're no longer just a species fighting for survival," he murmured. "We're a force to be reckoned with, and no one, not the Xanthians or anyone else, will stand in our way." As the Vigilance and its fleet sailed through the remnants of the Xanthian Empire, Earth's place in the galaxy was now undeniable. The universe had just witnessed humanity's rise, and it would never be the same again.